The sound was so loud that even Cao was stunned. Then, he realized that the stone under his feet had suddenly broken, and his huge body fell down the canyon. Actually, the reason why there was such a loud sound in the canyon was because of Li Yuanqing's sword. At the bottom of the canyon, the python had stopped squirming. Beside its half-body, another even larger python with horns on its head was cautiously slithering around it. At this moment, Li Yuanqing had already hidden his aura as an expert. He stood beside a stone crack and watched this scene calmly. There were originally many pythons hidden at the bottom of the canyon. From the one he had killed just now and the one that had appeared, this python's body was huge, and there should be many of them. This place was really too dangerous for human experts. Any random python could devour those experts. He had to be careful and slowly observe the terrain here. He did not let out any aura. Just as the python with horns was about to devour its companion, another dragon-like vicious beast suddenly rushed out, and its body was even larger. The horns on its head had turned red, and its eyes were the size of lanterns. The python that had first appeared to devour its companion was already quietly retreating. Vicious beasts were smarter than humans. They ran away as soon as they knew that they could not win. There was no need to lose their lives for some food. The python with red horns was very arrogant. After it arrived, it was not like the second python that was still wandering around tentatively. It directly swallowed the python that Li Yuanqing had cut into two. It was arrogant and was filled with confidence. Li Yuanqing felt that since it could grow so big and be so unrestrained, it was probably already a powerhouse at the top of the food chain at the bottom of the canyon. Li Yuanqing's guess was right. This python with red horns was definitely a tyrant at the bottom of the canyon. This was because several types of vicious beasts had rushed over. When they saw the python, they hurriedly retreated and did not dare to stay for a moment. They were afraid that if they stayed any longer, they would become the python's after-dinner snacks. Li Yuanqing followed behind the python after it completely devoured its companion. With this fellow leading the way, the bottom of the canyon seemed very safe. The python swam leisurely towards the flowing water after eating its fill. Soon, Li Yuanqing realized that the bottom of the canyon was abnormally large. It was like an underground city, and the river was extremely spacious. It was tens of thousands of meters wide. Where there was water, there were many huge, vicious beasts sticking their heads out and looking at the python warily. At this moment, the python was already full. It swam into the water and splashed around. Only when a bird passed by the water surface would the python jump up and swallow the bird. Li Yuanqing looked at the various vicious beasts by the water. Because he had concealed his aura, and he was much stronger than these vicious beasts. As long as he did not get too close to them, these huge, vicious beasts would not be able to discover him. The python that was suddenly playing in the water suddenly bit something and rolled in the water. And Li Yuanqing saw a boss serpent. The boss serpent's head was green, but its body was black. Its body was much smaller than the python with red horns. At this moment, it was struggling in the water. The other ferocious beasts drinking water on the shore fled far away when they saw this scene. Those who did not leave were constantly paying attention to the water surface. Greed appeared in the eyes of some of the vicious beasts. Their saliva was dripping down, as if they were waiting for the python to deal with the little boss serpent so that they could pick up some leftovers. Although the little boss serpent was huge, it looked very helpless and weak in front of the python with red horns. In the Grand Canyon, the little boss serpent was weak. A sword light flashed, and the python was so frightened that it immediately crawled into the water and did not dare to come out again. The little boss serpent was still a little dumbfounded, but it had escaped death. It did not care about the blood on its body and hurriedly ran towards its nest. The smell of blood on the little boss serpent's body attracted some of the vicious beasts who were watching from the shore. At this moment, they followed behind the little boss serpent after smelling the smell of blood. It was obvious that they wanted to devour this little boss serpent to eat their fill. In this canyon, a little boss serpent with such a body was obviously weak. It was not as terrifying as the boss serpent that Zhaoyang had mentioned. Li Yuanqing followed the little boss serpent unhurriedly and helped it deal with several vicious beasts that wanted to ambush and devour it. Initially, the little boss serpent had fled in a hurry and did not discover Li Yuanqing. However, the little boss serpent finally discovered him after Li Yuanqing killed a few vicious beasts. Moreover, there were a few times when it deliberately turned around and nodded at Li Yuanqing. When the little boss serpent realized that the vicious beasts that were following behind it were all dealt with by Li Yuanqing, it stopped and swam to his side. Although this little boss serpent did not look big, it was 70 to 80 meters long. It was also a huge creature as it stood in front of Li Yuanqing. At this moment, the little boss serpent even bent its head and lowered its green head because of its gratitude. It approached Li Yuanqing as if it was willing to let him ride it. Vicious beasts were very smart. After taming them, they could be used as mounts. Li Yuanqing had come down to the canyon to find the boss serpent. To be able to gain the favor of this little boss serpent was exactly what he wanted. This was his goal in coming to the wilderness canyon. When he rode on the little boss serpent, he felt like he was flying between clouds. Moreover, the little boss serpent became very excited after carrying Li Yuanqing. Then, it moved very quickly. Not long after, it arrived at a cliff. Water rushed down from the cliff and gathered at the bottom of the cliff to form a huge pool. Under the cliff was a huge cave. It should be where the little boss serpent was hiding, judging from the size of the cave. The little boss serpent rushed down happily and swallowed the fish after it saw that there were fish jumping up from the pool. The birds that flew over from the sky were all food for the little boss serpent. The little boss serpent had probably built its nest here because of the food. Although the terrain of this canyon was dangerous, there were many vicious beasts here. This was an excellent hunting ground for vicious beasts. Li Yuanqing patted the little boss serpent. "Take me around the Grand Canyon. Don't go to especially dangerous places. I want to see how big this place is." The little boss serpent finally moved after Li Yuanqing repeated his words. It brought Li Yuanqing along and swam around the bottom of the canyon. Soon, Li Yuanqing saw the situation at the bottom of the vast canyon from its back. It was as he had guessed. The boss serpent that the boss serpent clan worshipped had to devour millions of people every year. There had to be a place to trap it, and the bottom of this canyon was the place Li Yuanqing had chosen. Li Yuanqing quickly left after confirming how to deal with the boss serpent. However, when he left, he saw Cow being forced around by a group of vicious beasts. Although it did resist, its efforts were useless. At the bottom of the canyon, the vicious beasts were too ferocious. Cow was covered in injuries. Just as he was about to be devoured by these vicious beasts, Li Yuanqing appeared and slashed at the vicious beasts surrounding it. Cow was overjoyed and shouted at Li Yuanqing, "Send us up the canyon." This canyon was really too high, but it was much easier with the little boss serpent. Li Yuanqing simply let the cow shrink and stand on the back of the little boss serpent. The man and the vicious beast went up directly. The Qilin beast was still looking around. When it saw Li Yuanqing, it was overjoyed. The little boss serpent sent Li Yuanqing up, scaring the Qilin beast. This was because the little boss serpent's body was really huge. Although it was not 100 meters long, it was still very shocking. It seemed that the bottom of the Grand Canyon was much more dangerous than the top. Restrain those vicious beasts under you. Don't let them approach this place. It's too dangerous. As soon as Li Yuanqing said that, the Qilin beast kept nodding. Even if Li Yuanqing did not remind it, as a beast king of the wilderness, it could also sense the danger at the bottom of the canyon, so it would definitely not approach. After leaving the Grand Canyon, Li Yuanqing was escorted by Cow and the Qilin beast. When Li Yuanqing returned to the wilderness valley, he went to the imperial city without packing. At this moment, everyone in the imperial city was uneasy. All the commoners and ministers of the imperial court were talking about the boss serpent clan. They were talking about the boss serpent that devoured millions of people every year. The reason why the boss serpent clan was feared by everyone was actually because of their guardian, the boss serpent. After Li Yuanqing arrived at the imperial city, he went straight to see Princess Xiaoyang. Li Yuanqing was accompanied by Princess Xiaoyang and walked around the city wall of the imperial city a few times every day. There were 50 million citizens in the imperial city. This was the most popular place in the Northern Kingdom. Almost half of the entire Northern Kingdom's people were gathered in the imperial city. If the imperial city was really occupied by the boss serpent clan, these 50 million commoners would be food for the boss serpent. Zhaoyang had not slept well for many days and was a little listless. However, when she saw Li Yuanqing, her eyes were filled with surprise and hope. She was exceptionally happy like a little follower as she accompanied Li Yuanqing to patrol the city. Although there were no obvious markings on the carriage, many commoners looked at them when they patrolled the city wall because it was a specially customized carriage. Some people even recognized that this was Princess Zhaoyang's carriage. Look, the princess hasn't given up on us. The princess must be thinking of a way. May the heavens bless us. If the boss serpent doesn't come, none of us will die. I really don't want to become food for the boss serpent, but what can we do? We can only wait for death. Li Yuanqing, who was sitting in the carriage, heard the discussions of many commoners under the city walls of the imperial city. There were so many commoners. Some believed that the Northern Kingdom had a way to resolve the boss serpent disaster, while others were pessimistic and afraid that they would become food for the boss serpent. There was more fear and panic among the innocent citizens. The imperial city was originally the rich and prosperous capital of the Northern Kingdom. However, the citizens living inside could not wait to escape from this place. Li Yuanqing even saw many people secretly leaving the imperial city with their families. Everyone would become the boss serpent's food once this prosperous and rich place became a place of worship for the boss serpent. Therefore, it would be good if they could survive and escape. Big brother, I've prepared everything you want. When do you need it? Do you need some martial artists to help? Our negotiations with the boss serpent clan are about to collapse. Once they sense that we're patronizing them, they might let the boss serpent charge into the imperial city at any time. At that time, no one will be able to escape. Although Princess Zhaoyang was very confident in her brother, she was not dealing with a martial saint this time, but the boss serpent. And it was a boss serpent that had been worshipped for thousands of years. 3 days. Stall for another 3 days at most. After I set up the heavenly cycle demon extinguishing array, the boss serpent won't dare to enter the imperial city. I'll think of a way to lure the boss serpent to the bottom of the wilderness canyon. Actually, Li Yuanqing had another way to resolve the boss serpent disaster. However, there were too many uncertain factors, so he did not say it out loud. At this moment, he could only calm Zhaoyang down and let her buy him 3 days of time. In 3 days, he would be able to complete this huge heavenly cycle demon extinguishing array and protect the entire imperial city. Originally, he had been studying the heavenly cycle demon extinguishing array for all these years and had long reached the proficiency level. That was why he could reduce the time needed to set up the array to just 3 days. It would take about half a year to set up such a huge array formation if it was only at the rudimentary understanding level. Alright, 3 days. I'll definitely buy 3 days for Big Brother. No matter what method I use, I reckon it'll only be 3 days at most. The envoy over there is already starting to get angry. Zhaoyang smiled bitterly. The officials who received the Boss Serpent clan had already been insulted and beaten up by the envoys of the Boss Serpent clan, but they endured it. Before the Boss Serpent disaster was completely resolved, they could only endure it, but they could not resist. This was because the lives of 50 million citizens in the imperial city could not be treated as a joke. As soon as Princess Zhaoyang returned to the residence, she was invited over because the Boss Serpent clan had already started killing. When Zhaoyang went over, she saw that the ground was covered in blood. The official in charge of entertaining the envoy was already covered in flesh and blood. His body was writhing on the ground, but he was not dead. The envoy of the Boss Serpent clan was laughing loudly at this moment. When he saw the princess, he did not stop. Instead, he deliberately kicked the envoy in front of everyone and looked at Princess Zhaoyang disdainfully. "Princess, our sacred artifact is already very impatient. It's hungry, so we have to fulfill our conditions immediately. The Northern Kingdom will become a vassal of the Boss Serpent clan, and the Li clan will immediately get out of the imperial city and send over 1 million living people for the sacred artifact to enjoy." The envoy felt that the Northern Kingdom was stalling for time, so he was very angry and felt that he should kill the officials of the Northern Kingdom to let them realize a fact, and that is the Northern Kingdom could not resist them at all now. The sacred artifact wanted to eat people. They wanted to turn the imperial city into a place to worship the sacred artifact. These people had to obey immediately. This is not a negotiation. They would ask the sacred artifact to devour it. Zhaoyang suppressed her disgust and said coldly, "We've made such a huge sacrifice. Even if we agree to move out of the imperial city, it will take more than 10 days to clean up. Moreover, you have to give me some time to capture and transport 1,000,000 citizens. We really can't rush. Our sacred artifact is already hungry and can't wait any longer. 3 days. I'll give you 3 days. You must deliver the food of the sacred artifact within 3 days. Otherwise, the entire northern kingdom will become a living hell." As the envoy spoke, he grabbed an official from the northern kingdom beside him. He was even more unrestrained in front of Princess Zhaoyang, because he knew in his heart that the northern kingdom definitely could not deal with the boss serpent, the sacred artifact they worshipped. It was just that there were some special reasons. In addition, he had heard that the northern kingdom also had a very powerful guardian. That was why he wanted the northern kingdom to obediently become a vassal. If it weren't for these considerations, the boss serpent clan would have directly taken out the sacred artifact and started a massacre. "All right, 3 days it is. After 3 days, I will settle everything, including the food, which is the millions of citizens of your sacred artifact." Zhaoyang suppressed the hatred in her heart and gestured for the people following her to quickly save the heavily injured officials. She could not let down those who were loyal to her. She had to save their lives even if they were injured. After Zhaoyang left, the boss serpent clan's envoy summoned his trusted aide. They whispered together. "Looking at the time, the sacred artifact should be waking up in the next 2 days. After it wakes up, it will eat a lot. I heard that there are many treasures in the royal family of the Northern Kingdom. We have to keep an eye on them and not let them take them away." The boss serpent clan had taken a fancy to the imperial city of the Northern Kingdom and the wealth of the royal family. Their sacred artifact did not like the treasures of the royal family, but they liked them, so they could not let these people take them away. When the sacred artifact woke up, it would be time for the boss serpent clan to expand. Every time the boss serpent woke up and needed to eat, the boss serpent clan would devour a small country. No one could resist the sacred artifact that they had worshipped for 1,000 years. The Northern Kingdom could not do it this time either. Li Yuanqing became very busy. The imperial city was too big. He needed to spread the great heavenly cycle demon extinguishing array all over the city walls and the sky. This project was very big. Hu Juzhou came at the right time. He pulled her along and used her to transport the materials. Hu Juzhou also brought a note to Li Yuanqing. "The boss serpent will wake up within these 2 days. Zhaoyang might not be able to last until the 3rd day." Hu Juzhou's cultivation level was higher than Zhaoyang's. The boss serpent clan did not expect Hu Juzhou to follow Princess Zhaoyang. "Yes, I got it. Well done." Li Yuanqing nodded as he looked at Hu Juzhou, whose appearance had not changed much. Instead, she was becoming younger and more charming. His inner demon seed had controlled Hu Juzhou back then. Later on, when he was cultivating in the wilderness, he had asked Hu Juzhou to follow Zhaoyang and protect her. Hu Juzhou did not make any major mistakes, and Li Yuanqing was quite satisfied. However, in the past 5 years, Hu Juzhou's injuries seemed to have healed a bit. Furthermore, it had vaguely tried to break through to the manipulation art a few times. It seemed like it was ambitious and always wanted to escape his control. Li Yuanqing knew what Hu Juzhou was thinking, but he did not expose her. Even if it was a puppet controlled by him, as the nine-tailed fox, Hu Juzhou had to have her own thoughts. It all depended on whether she had the ability. The palace maids and eunuchs were in a mess. Under the orders of their master, they began to pack some precious treasures and began to organize some things that needed to be taken away. Their belongings had to be dealt with immediately because His Majesty had ordered them to move the palace within 3 days. The Northern Kingdom had been established for 100 years. Although its foundation was insufficient, it still took a long time to pack the things in the palace. Therefore, the entire palace was in a state of chaos. Everyone was busy. The officials were busy sorting out some precious books, and the eunuchs and palace maids were busy packing up the treasures and the private treasuries of the imperial concubines. Everyone in the palace thought that they would be leaving the imperial city in 3 days. Only His Majesty Li Yuanqing and Princess Zhaoyang knew that they still had one last chance. It was the array that Li Yuanqing had mentioned. He would use the array to protect everyone and prevent the boss serpent from entering the imperial city. However, Li Yuanqing had also prepared for the worst. If the array is useless, I'll stay behind. You can go to the wilderness. I'm already an incompetent father. My body won't last long. For the sake of the empire, I'll stay in the imperial city and let the commoners see that the emperor of the northern kingdom didn't abandon them. Li Yuanqing lived for the sake of the northern kingdom. Therefore, if the imperial city became the place where the boss serpent clan provided for the boss serpent, it means that the empire was no longer around. Without his faith, living was worse than dying. Therefore, he would die. Father, I believe in Big Brother. The boss serpent disaster would be resolved. If it really can't be resolved, then the country will be destroyed. I won't live on either. Although Xiaoyang sometimes hated her father for being heartless and would sacrifice anyone for the sake of the country, it was a rare consolation for him when she heard that he was going to die, because only she believed that her brother would definitely have a way to resolve this crisis. Although the news of the palace packing up and leaving the city within 3 days could be hidden from the ordinary citizens, some meritorious officials understood the current situation. Someone also knew that His Majesty wanted to die for the country. A wave of despair filled the hearts of all the officials. Some people had also made up their minds. When the boss serpent entered the imperial city, even if they knew that they could not win, they would still give it a try. As long as one was alive, they would not retreat even if they risked their lives. This atmosphere of despair began to spread. From the royal family to the officials of the imperial court to the commoners, everyone's hearts were filled with despair. Some planned to wait for death, some planned to fight even if they knew that they would fail, and some thought about whether they could survive for their wives and children. A day later, the boss serpent clan was filled with cheers, because their hope, the 1,000-year-old sacred artifact that they worshipped, had awakened today. The originally clear sky quickly turned dark. Dark clouds rolled in the sky, and a huge and unbelievable boss serpent appeared in midair. Its huge head was even larger than a mountain. Its black body darkened the entire sky because it was swimming in midair. The patriarch of the boss serpent clan, who was standing at the highest point of the mountain, was chanting to communicate with the boss serpent. "Welcome, great lord. Your most loyal servant has already prepared the most delicious food for you. Please follow me to enjoy it." The patriarch of the boss serpent clan pointed in a direction, which was the imperial city of the northern kingdom. There was a large amount of food that they had prepared for the awakening of the sacred artifact. 50 million citizens was enough for the boss serpent to increase its strength and live longer. As long as this boss serpent was around, the boss serpent clan would prosper forever. Because of its huge size, the awakened boss serpent needed to eat a large number of living creatures. The boss serpent clan had worshipped it for 1,000 years, so they naturally knew the habits of the boss serpent. Moreover, every patriarch of the boss serpent clan could communicate with the boss serpent and understand the simple meaning of the boss serpent. Usually, when the patriarch conveyed his meaning to the boss serpent, it could understand it. What the patriarch meant was that there were many delicacies in a place where the sun rose that could let him eat his fill. The boss serpent had been sleeping for many years. After waking up, its desire for food surpassed everything. When it heard that there was delicious food to enjoy, it twisted its head and looked towards the imperial city of the northern kingdom. That place was a little far. Even though the boss serpent's body was huge, it was still a little dissatisfied. It was very hungry, so it turned its head around to look for food. In its memory, the food would usually be placed on an altar when it woke up. Groups of living creatures would be sent over for it to eat to its heart's content. This time, it was very hungry, but it was unwilling to go so far. Therefore, the boss serpent twisted its body and arrived at the altar 100 miles away in just a moment. In the past, this place was used to place the food for the boss serpent. Those foods were actually living humans. They were all slaves that the boss serpent clan had obtained from the vassal countries, and some were captives. To them, these people were easier to deal with than any cattle or horses. There were at least 1 million people in a city, and the sacred artifact like this smell. Therefore, the members of the boss serpent clan plundered everywhere and captured other cities, turning everyone into slaves of the boss serpent clan. However, the boss serpent also had a habit. When it ate enough, it would fall into a deep sleep every once in a while. At this time, there was no protection from the boss serpent. The boss serpent clan would be much more obedient. They would take out the treasures they had plundered and enjoy them. When the boss serpent was sleeping, they would choose to hide in the city and guard it. However, when the boss serpent woke up and needed food, they would use the evil of the boss serpent to fight everywhere and turn some rich countries or territories that they had their eyes on into their vassals. This time, before the boss serpent woke up, the boss serpent clan had already targeted the imperial city of the Northern Kingdom. Their envoy had been negotiating with the Northern Kingdom. They said that the royal family of the Northern Kingdom would move out of the imperial city and offer the imperial city for the boss serpent to live in. Moreover, they would sacrifice 1 million people every year for the boss serpent to eat. Actually, they were stalling for time. They were waiting for the boss serpent to wake up. If they couldn't come to an agreement, they would directly take out the boss serpent and cause the entire imperial city to flow with blood. The rich imperial city of the Northern Kingdom would directly become the possession of the boss serpent clan. They had already annexed countless countries over the past 1,000 years with the boss serpent. However, the boss serpent was too hungry after it woke up. It was actually more than 10,000 kilometers from the boss serpent clan to the Northern Kingdom's imperial city. Although this distance was nothing to the boss serpent, it would take at most half a day. However, the boss serpent was hungry and wanted to eat blood. Furthermore, it only wanted to eat after waking up. When it saw that there was nothing on the altar, the boss serpent was furious. It turned its head and charged towards the boss serpent clan. In the blink of an eye, a huge hole appeared in the sky. One could not see the bottom of the hole, nor could they see the end. The sky was dark, and only something blood-red like lightning protruded from the huge hole. The members of the boss serpent clan felt like the world was collapsing. A huge suction force that they could not resist made the people on the street unable to stand at all. All of them soared into the sky and were sucked into the black hole. Countless members of the boss serpent clan were sucked into its stomach and became its delicious food. The patriarch of the boss serpent clan panicked when he saw this. If he had known earlier, he would have collected 10,000 servants in the Northern Kingdom and let the sacred artifact fill his stomach first. He didn't expect that the ones who would suffer were his own clansmen. However, the boss serpent worshipped by the boss serpent clan had been like this for thousands of years. Once they were unable to provide the boss serpent with rich food, they would become the boss serpent's food. Otherwise, the egos of his clansmen would rapidly expand just by relying on the boss serpent clan's wanton plundering and destruction over the years. However, because of the worship of the boss serpent, there were not many true pure clansmen of the boss serpent clan. Most of them were human blood food that the boss serpent clan prepared for the boss serpent at any time. The patriarch could not stop chanting, praying that the boss serpent could control itself and listen to his communication. Almighty Saint King, we have already prepared your food. Furthermore, we have prepared the food for the next 10 or 100 years. In the distant east, there is the most tender food. Please stop your appetite and come with me to enjoy a feast. The patriarch kept muttering. In its hand was something that looked like a dried bamboo pole. There was a purple gauze tied to the bamboo pole, and it kept swaying in front of the boss serpent. However, the boss serpent was too big. Even though the patriarch was holding the bamboo pole in his hand, it was still very small in the eyes of the boss serpent. After it devoured tens of thousands of food, it slowed down when it saw the bamboo pole. The vortex black hole in the sky slowly closed. Countless people who were clinging to the windows or hiding in the houses barely escaped. The entire boss serpent clansmen who were walking on the streets had been devoured by the boss serpent. A ray of light finally shone through the originally dark sky. It was the boss serpent following the patriarch towards the Northern Kingdom, because it understood a sentence. The food for the next year, 10 years, and 100 years were settled. Just now, it was too hungry and could not control itself. After eating countless people, it began to communicate with the patriarch and was willing to go to the Northern Kingdom. After the boss serpent left, the streets of the entire boss serpent clan's castle were almost empty. At this moment, these people who had survived the calamity surged onto the streets. They held bamboo poles in their hands and kept hitting them together, dancing and celebrating their survival when the sacred artifact woke up. As long as they survived this time, they would wait for the boss serpent to occupy a new place. They could occupy that place and enjoy themselves in peace. Then, they would wait for the boss serpent to eat up the people from the vassal country before falling into a deep sleep. When the boss serpent woke up the next time, they would not be in danger as long as they prepared food for it. If they did not prepare the food, the one who would become food would be the unlucky one among them. For thousands of years, the boss serpent clan had always thrived like this. This time, the one chosen was the Northern Kingdom, and they could all move to the imperial city of the Northern Kingdom in the end. This was because after the boss serpent devoured the people in the imperial city, it relied on them to fill the gap. As long as they understood the boss serpent's rules, they would be able to live very well. Outside the city walls of the imperial city, Li Yuanqing suddenly raised his head and looked towards the west. There was a loud sound over there, and the sky over there covered the sun as if day had suddenly turned into night. And that direction was where the boss serpent clan lived. It should be that the boss serpent had awakened since there's such a huge commotion. However, it had only been 2 days, and the heavenly cycle demon extinguishing array in the imperial city had yet to be completely set up. There was still a day's time. What now? Li Yuanqing was a little anxious. At this moment, the envoy of the boss serpent clan in the imperial city looked at the dark clouds rolling in the distant sky. That familiar scene made him so excited that he knelt on the ground and kept praying. The sacred artifact has awakened. The good days of the world are here. The imperial city is ours. In the imperial city, the imperial palace was still bustling nervously. The empress and the concubines were packing their things. They were still unaware of the impending danger. In the entire imperial city, martial artists above the 8th grade had already gathered in the hall in front of the imperial palace. They saw the emperor of the Northern Kingdom, Li Yuanqing, wearing the most gorgeous dragon robe and sitting on the dragon throne with a calm expression. I can't let the history of the Northern Kingdom stop in my hands. Even if I die, I have to die here. If you can live, you should leave. You can escort your wives and children out of here. Li Yuanqing looked sadly at the civil and military officials in front of him. Although he had been trembling with fear all his life, in this era where the strong were respected, the Northern Kingdom, which had only been established for 100 years, was riddled with holes. From the Blood Flame sect to the Wind Thunder sect, to the rebellion of the 7 great clans, and countless schemes that wanted to subvert the politics of the Northern Kingdom. Although he had used all sorts of methods and relied on the guardian of the Northern Kingdom to finally stabilize it until now, this time, he was facing the boss serpent clan. He was already mentally and physically exhausted and could not hold on anymore. He planned to die in the palace even if he was swallowed by the boss serpent. Your Majesty, go and ask the guardian. The Northern Kingdom can't be destroyed like this. We swear to live and die with the Northern Kingdom. The officials who had yet to leave were basically prepared to die. They would not leave until His Majesty did. The boss serpent is not something that a martial saint can deal with. Escort the princess to the wilderness and hope for a chance of survival. If the flames of the Northern Kingdom are not extinguished, we still have a chance. Li Yuanqing was already barely holding on. His body was already extremely ill, and he had not slept for a few days. It was difficult for him to speak. However, he tried his best to protect the dignity of the royal family. Father, I won't live if the country is destroyed. We'll fight the boss serpent clan to the death. Princess Xiaoyang was already a 9th grade martial artist, but when she said this, no one felt that she could win. This was because the countries that had been destroyed by the boss serpent clan had many martial saint ancestors. They were much more powerful than Xiaoyang. Yet so many martial saint ancestors were unable to protect their country or resist the boss serpent. This time, it was the Northern Kingdom's turn. However, even if there was no hope, they had to give it a try. In the imperial city, sorrow and despair made the commoners lock themselves in their houses. This was because there were guards patrolling the streets everywhere. They kept shouting for everyone to not go out because their houses were the safest. Everyone, in regards to the boss serpent, was just food. A whistling sound began to sound in the sky. The originally clear sky had begun to change color. In the black fog that covered the sky, a mountain-like head appeared. The head was also black. In the air, a huge boss serpent with no edges could be seen. From time to time, scales larger than houses appeared in the air. Someone started to fall from the body of the boss serpent. It was the patriarch of the boss serpent clan. At this moment, the envoys of the boss serpent clan in the imperial city were already welcoming their patriarch and preparing to massacre the city. At this moment, Li Yuanqing's heavenly cycle demon extinguishing array was still 6 hours away from completion. He needed someone to stall the boss serpent for 6 hours. At this moment, the boss serpent had already flown above the imperial city. The entire imperial city, which was originally clear and bright, had already turned dark. A boundless, terrifying pressure filled the hearts of everyone in the imperial city. Those commoners covered their mouths and hid in their houses, secretly looking out. But it was dark outside. They couldn't see anything. Suddenly, a huge torch was lit in the palace. The emperor of the northern kingdom appeared on the wall of the palace. Behind him was Princess Xiaoyang. Princess Xiaoyang was dressed in military attire. Under the light of the torch, she looked valiant and heroic. At this moment, she looked at the huge boss serpent in the sky and raised a spear in her hand. Whether she could win or not, she had to charge forward. Xiaoyang, step back. I'll do it. The originally weak Li Yuanqing suddenly took out something and poured it into his mouth. At this moment, his aura was rising. He, who was originally a 9th-grade martial artist, had his aura surge all the way to the 1st-grade martial Saint Grotto Heaven realm. He stood up immediately. He used medicine to stimulate all his potential and burned his limited lifespan to use his life to protect the Northern Kingdom. He had lived his entire life for the Northern Kingdom. Therefore, he soared into the sky and a sword appeared in his hand. The sword flew out, and he became one with the sword, charging towards the boss serpent in the sky. A white light suddenly flashed in the originally dark sky. It was Li Yuanqing and his sword. Many of the commoners who were hiding in the houses rushed out and knelt on the ground, wailing, "Your Majesty!" Li Yuanqing, who was setting up the array, looked at Li Yuanqing, who was facing death calmly, and closed his eyes. The boss serpent's realm was very high. It might be at the 4th-grade Grotto Heaven realm, even higher than his realm. Even he had to use the help of the array formation. Li Yuanqing, who was a 9th-grade martial artist that forcefully increased his strength to a fake martial saint, was courting death. Originally, after transmigrating, Li Yuanqing was extremely disgusted by his father, who had once treated him and Xiaoyang as objects. In order to stabilize the country, he sacrificed himself and Princess Xiaoyang. So Li Yuanqing did not like him. Li Yuanqing had gone to the wilderness many times, but he refused to see him and refused to forgive him. He only protected the Northern Kingdom because of Xiaoyang. However, he did not expect that his father, the Emperor of the Northern Kingdom, would actually rush forward to die at this critical moment.
Li Yuanqing siga.
Although he had many thoughts in his heart, he still put down the array formation in his hand and flew up to pull Li Yuanqing, who was covered in blood and had been struck by the boss serpent's tail. Although he was weak, he faced death calmly this time. He was indeed the ruler of the Northern Kingdom. Below the imperial city, countless civil and military officials and commoners who were kneeling and crying had already gone crazy. When Li Yuanqing went to pull Li Yuanqing, his aura had already begun to weaken. It was impossible to forcefully raise his realm with medicine. Moreover, even a 1st-stage Grotto Heaven realm martial saint would not be able to withstand the boss serpent's attack. It was no different from throwing an egg at a rock. However, Li Yuanqing's charge had aroused the hatred of everyone in the Northern Kingdom. The emperor was the first to charge forward without fear of death. How could they dare to live? The high-level martial artists also stood in a row, ready to die at any moment. However, Li Yuanqing, who had descended from the sky to catch their emperor, attracted everyone's attention. Some people's eyes burned. Could this be the mysterious guardian of the Northern Kingdom? Those who raised their heads saw that in the dark sky, Li Yuanqing, who was dressed in white, was like an immortal who had descended from the sky, giving hope to everyone in the imperial city. If he could save the emperor, could he also save them? Hu Jujiu, who was standing behind Xiaoyang, also saw her master, Li Yuanqing. He landed on the ground and put down Li Yuanqing, who was already on the verge of collapse. He signaled for help, but he was already on the verge of death. His life was about to end. His father would not live for long. Hu Jujie walked behind Li Yuanqing. At this moment, she was dressed in red. She nodded at Li Yuanqing and jumped up to charge at the boss serpent. Her cultivation level was actually very high, almost at the second-grade Grotto Heaven realm. Her cultivation level was already not bad among martial saints. Moreover, she had protected Princess Zhaoyang for so many years, and almost nothing had ever happened to her. In the eyes of some citizens of the Northern Kingdom, she was the Princess Guardian, the guardian of the entire Northern Kingdom. Her master was already about to make a move. Hu Jujie naturally understood what Li Yuanqing meant as a servant controlled by the manipulation art. When Li Huanjuan was shot down just now, she could clearly feel the change in her master's emotions. This boss serpent had to die. Therefore, she rushed up. Hu Jujie, who was originally dressed in red in the sky, suddenly became huge. Moreover, she was no longer maintaining her human form. Instead, she let out a sharp cry and summoned the Qilin beast. Moreover, behind her, 9 huge tails spread out, causing the commoners below the imperial city to be dumbfounded. The one guarding their northern kingdom was a vicious beast, a 9-tailed fox. This was simply unbelievable. However, Hu Jujie's 9 tails, which were swaying one by one, revealed 9 different colors after she revealed her true form. It was very strange and different from the legendary 9-tailed fox. She was not a 9-tailed fox. She was a 9-tailed heavenly fox with a stronger bloodline than a 9-tailed fox. It was the legendary heavenly fox that would occasionally descend to the human world in ancient times. Li Yuanqing was also shocked. Hu Jujie was a heavenly fox? It was also Li Yuanqing's first time seeing Hu Jujie reveal her true form. Her true form almost enveloped the entire imperial city, and she slapped the boss serpent. Her sharp claws were much more powerful than Li Huanjuan's sword. She waved her claws, and the boss serpent in the sky twisted violently. A rain of blood fell from the sky and landed on the ground of the imperial city. It was the blood of the boss serpent. The boss serpent's scales had been injured by Hu Jujie's claw, and the Qilin beast had already rushed over. It roared at the boss serpent, and its entire body kept growing. The houses that were under the feet of the Qilin beast collapsed one after another. This fellow was too big. These houses could not withstand its weight at all. Wilderness, there are still 4 hours left. Li Yuanqing suddenly shouted these words at Hu Jujie. Others might not understand, but Hu Jujie knew what her master meant. He asked them to lure the boss serpent to the wilderness and give him 4 hours to set up the great heavenly cycle demon extinguishing array. They could prevent the boss serpent from entering the imperial city. If not, ordinary commoners would all enter the stomach of the boss serpent. Hu Jujie screamed and rushed towards the boss serpent again. Her true form was stronger than the boss serpent bloodline, but she had not recovered from her injuries, and her strength was greatly reduced. The boss serpent was furious after being scratched by her. It couldn't care less about the food in the imperial city and wanted to devour Hu Jujie. The Qilin beast rushed up and tore at the boss serpent. They kept moving towards the wilderness from the sky of the imperial city. However, it was dark and gloomy along the way. Blood rain kept falling from the ground. In the end, they couldn't even tell who it belonged to.
Li Yuanqing sans cède ou Jujue saura.
Even if she couldn't kill the boss serpent, it shouldn't be a problem to stall it for a few hours. Li Yuanqing spent all his time nervously setting up the great heavenly cycle demon extinguishing array. The boss serpent had just woken up when it encountered an opponent like Hu Jujie. It felt unbearably hungry and wanted to see the countless food in the imperial city. It took the time to turn around and run back. It wanted to eat food before dealing with these 2 detestable opponents and then tear them apart. There was still a distance from the wilderness to the imperial city, but it was very close for the boss serpent. However, it was injured. When the blood dripped down, it turned into a rain of blood. When it arrived at the imperial city, its eyes were red. It had to devour even more to increase its strength because it was injured. Therefore, the boss serpent charged into the imperial city and opened its huge bloody mouth to devour it. The sky, which had slowly turned bright after the boss serpent left, suddenly turned dark again. Furthermore, a huge black hole appeared in the sky, accompanied by an irresistible devouring power. It was by relying on this devouring power that the boss serpent could become stronger and stronger. As long as it devoured this food, that fox was not its match at all. The boss serpent took a deep breath at the imperial city, only to see the entire dark imperial city suddenly light up. Starting from the city wall, the entire imperial city lit up like a sea of fire. That light made the boss serpent, who was using its devouring power, instantly feel as if it had sucked the light into its body. However, that light made it feel intense pain. Its outer skin was extremely tough. Even Hu Jiuzhou's sharp claws would at most cause it to bleed, but it would not endanger its life. However, this light made its body hurt. It was so painful that it spat out a lot of blood. Blood rained down on the entire imperial city. This boss serpent's blood was everywhere because it was too big. The heavenly cycle demon extinguishing array had already begun to activate. At this moment, Li Yuanqing was staring at the boss serpent. He had already taken out the clear sky sword in his hand and slashed at the boss serpent. A black light flashed past. Li Yuanqing, who could have slashed open the mountain with his sword, only managed to cut open the skin of the boss serpent, causing more blood to flow out of its body. The rain of blood continued to fall. The members of the boss serpent clan knelt down when they saw this, especially the envoy. He was trembling in fear. The boss serpent was injured, so they were doomed. This was absolutely intolerable. At this moment, the boss serpent patriarch did something strange. He kept drawing circles on his body. After the boss serpent was led away by their patriarch, the entire clan began to migrate to the northern kingdom. They had raised many black snakes with the bloodline of the boss serpent, as well as green snakes, other than the boss serpent. Although these snakes were not as powerful as the boss serpent, they were very big and swam very quickly because of the boss serpent's bloodline. Every time the boss serpent clan patriarch led the boss serpent to battle, they would bring those snakes and quickly follow. It was so that they could quickly plunder the fruits of victory when the boss serpent occupied another country. Moreover, as a tribe that worshipped the boss serpent, the members of the boss serpent clan had almost arrived at the northern kingdom when the boss serpent fought Hu Jiuzhou in the imperial city. When the patriarch of the boss serpent clan began to chant an incantation, it was as if there was a magical power that allowed the members of the boss serpent clan to arrive at the imperial city as quickly as possible. When the boss serpent was injured and a rain of blood began to fall from the sky, the members of the boss serpent clan became even more anxious. They urged the black snakes that were in charge of transporting them to move faster. It was rare for the boss serpent to be injured. If the boss serpent was finished, their clan would not be far from being exterminated. In the past 1,000 years, they were the only ones who had destroyed other people's homes. They had never encountered a danger of being exterminated. The patriarch of the boss serpent clan chanted even more urgently. The sweat on his head had already drenched his clothes, and there was a rain of blood on his head. He looked like he had been scooped up from a pool of blood. When he saw that his clansmen had arrived, he heaved a sigh of relief. As he relaxed, he suddenly let out a sharp and ear-piercing sound. The boss serpent, who was already injured, perked up when it heard the sound. It turned around and saw the dense food not far away. That's right, those clansmen who were riding the black snakes were delicacies in its eyes. Only by eating these delicacies could it recover quickly and even break through. A black hole appeared in the sky again. In the palace of the northern kingdom, there was a moment of panic because these people knew that the boss serpent was about to devour them again. However, to everyone's surprise, the boss serpent's target was not the imperial city. It actually devoured the members of the boss serpent clan, who seemed to have delivered themselves to its doorstep. The hundreds and thousands of people sitting on the back of the black snakes were like a delicious meal delivered to its door. Even those snakes with the boss serpent bloodline were mercilessly devoured by it. The boss serpent was injured. It needed to eat. Devouring was its instinct. Only by devouring more things could it become stronger. Li Yuanqing watched as the boss serpent devoured the living humans and its kind. The rain of blood that had been pattering down had stopped. It turned out that the wounds on the boss serpent's body were recovering at a visible speed. So that's it? When the boss serpent was injured, It would use the flesh and blood of the boss serpent clansmen or its own kind to heal itself. An endless stream of members of the boss serpent clan would automatically be fed to it, but the patriarch of the boss serpent clan did not care at all. Lunatic. If he didn't make a move while the boss serpent was devouring humans, he probably wouldn't have a chance when it recovered. No wonder the boss serpent had destroyed so many countries in the past 1,000 years. So many martial saints had been devoured by the boss serpent. This was because no one had the ruthlessness of the boss serpent clan, nor was there anyone with such a powerful recovery ability. At the thought of this, Li Yuanqing did not show any mercy. He took out the clear sky sword and slashed at the boss serpent one by one. In the night, his sword was like a bolt of lightning, giving everyone in the imperial city hope. He was the guardian of the northern kingdom. At this most critical moment, he stood up. Cheers sounded from below the imperial city. Although some people could not see Li Yuanqing's face, they could see that light was slowly appearing in the dark sky. Hu Jujiu and the Qilin beast also rushed forward, especially Hu Jujiu. She had been recuperating in the northern kingdom's imperial city for the past few years and had obtained many high-grade medicinal herbs from the royal family to recuperate. Moreover, Princess Zhaoyang treated her very well. Sometimes, she would even sneak onto the streets of the imperial city. Especially during the annual Lantern Festival in the past few years, she would sneak out and see lanterns and fireworks everywhere in the imperial city. There were also children running around celebrating. After staying in the imperial city for a few years, she had become fond of this place, so she was unwilling to see blood flow like a river here. Then the boss serpent could only die. After devouring countless people, the injuries on the boss serpent's body could no longer be seen. It plunged its head into the imperial city again. It was injured here, so it would devour everyone here. Otherwise, it would be difficult to resolve the hatred in his heart. However, this time, when it rushed towards the imperial city, it saw a flash of light above the imperial city, and its body hurt. It couldn't get in. Should it find another place to rush in? The boss serpent was unconvinced and continued to rush towards the imperial city. However, it only realized at this moment that the surroundings of the large imperial city was actually surrounded by an array formation. No matter what method it used, it could not rush in at all. The entire imperial city was like a huge net, blocking it and making it unable to go in. It had already devoured all the food sent by the boss serpent clan. Without any replenishment, the boss serpent was injured again. In particular, the sword in Li Yuanqing's hand could stab it every time. It wanted to devour Li Yuanqing, but it realized that this person was running too fast. It could not even keep up with his afterimage. Li Yuanqing's sand escape technique was unleashed to the extreme this time. Moreover, the boss serpent had the intention to retreat after its attack on the imperial city was blocked. Li Yuanqing could not bear to let it go. He had to destroy this thing that was causing trouble. However, the scales on the boss serpent's body were very hard. The clear sky sword could only scratch its scales every time, but it could not stab it to death. But Li Yuanqing was ruthless. What he did not lack the most was patience. He could cultivate alone in the wilderness for so many years. If he didn't have patience, he wouldn't be able to stay there. Therefore, he began to chase after the boss serpent. He chased it from the imperial city of the northern kingdom to the wilderness, then from the wilderness to the Jiangnan area, and then from the Jiangnan area to the wilderness. He chased it for 10 days and 10 nights. In the past 10 days and 10 nights, it had been raining blood nonstop. It was the blood left behind by the boss serpent. In the end, after the boss serpent was forced by Li Yuanqing to the wilderness canyon, it was already at the end of its rope. This boss serpent disaster was the most difficult battle in Li Yuanqing's history. When the huge boss serpent landed in the canyon, it was more than 10 times smaller than its original body. Even so, it was still bigger than a few mountains. When it fell into the canyon, the entire place collapsed and shook violently. The boss serpent tried its best to support its body and not fall. It glared at Li Yuanqing with hatred. It had actually lived for many years. This time, it woke up because it knew that an opportunity had arrived. It had originally wanted to devour a large amount of flesh and blood and quietly wait for that opportunity to come. It did not expect to meet Li Yuanqing. It was unwilling to accept this. It was filled with hatred. It originally had a chance to manifestate. When it successfully manifestate, it would ascend to the heavens and become a true god. However, all of this was completely destroyed by the man in front of it. In its hatred, the boss serpent suddenly exploded the inner core that it had cultivated for thousands of years. Li Yuanqing quickly used the sand escape technique under the intense impact. However, he did not expect the impact to be too great. He only saw a red figure blocking in front of him. It was Hu Jiujiu. This was the nine-tailed fox that had always wanted to break free from him. It was the first nine-tailed fox that he had used manipulation art on. This time, she actually stood in front of him. Ow! The Chilean beast also rushed up. Tears fell from its eyes as it circled Hu Jiujiu. Hu Jiujiu spat out mouthfuls of blood. You won't die, but your injuries aren't light either. Li Yuanqing felt a little uncomfortable. Hu Jiujiu probably could not manifestate this time because he had planted the inner demon seed in her. She wouldn't die, but with such serious injuries, she would probably be beaten back to her original form. This boss serpent was really detestable. When Li Yuanqing went to look for the boss serpent again, he discovered that its exploded corpse had been eaten up by the vicious beasts at the bottom of the canyon. The one who benefited the most was the little boss serpent that Li Yuanqing had saved. This was because it was also a boss serpent. After devouring the flesh and blood of this boss serpent, it broke through and became several times larger. It was already at the top of the food chain at the bottom of the canyon. Before Li Yuanqing could think of a way to clean up the canyon, something happened in the imperial city. The northern kingdom seems to have undergone a change under 10 days and 10 nights of blood rain. There were not many martial artists at first, but it seemed like there were more of them now. The energy in the air also seemed to have increased. There was a prince of the uncle generation of Princess Xiaoyang in the northern kingdom's royal family. He had broken through to the first stage Grotto Heaven realm in one go. This was a great joy for the northern kingdom. However, at the same time, the emperor of the northern kingdom, Li Yuanqing, could no longer make it. Originally, he still had 10 years to live. However, when he was dealing with the boss serpent, he had forcefully raised his cultivation and burned his remaining lifespan. He had already reached the point of exhaustion. When the boss serpent died at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, he was already lying on his bed on his last breath. This time, Li Yuanqing quietly came to the palace and saw those familiar places. He had not returned for nearly 20 years. When he returned this time, he realized that some of the trees had become thicker, but the palace buildings had barely changed. In particular, Li Yuanqing's bedroom was still the same. For so many years, this emperor who was dedicated to the country was about to die. Yuanqing, Yuanqing, Yuanqing. Li Yuanqing heard Li Yuanqing's call from afar. When Princess Xiaoyang was still instructing people to look for the eldest prince, she saw her elder brother, Li Yuanqing, standing in front of her. Tell everyone to leave. I'll stay with father for a while. In the past 20 years, this was the first time Li Yuanqing had called Li Yuanqing father. Back then, when he was being crippled of his cultivation and was sent to the wilderness valley, he had also felt hatred. That was why he had refused to see Li Yuanqing all these years. He would rather meet Xiaoyang and had avoided Li Yuanqing many times. This man was a good emperor, but not a good father. To him, his children were just a tool to protect the country. Nothing was more important than his country. But that day, he rushed towards the boss serpent. His actions were really cool. Unfortunately, his lifespan was over. It was as if his foundation had been completely destroyed. He did not have the power to turn the situation around. Therefore, he stood in front of Li Yuanqing to send him off. They were father and son after all. All the grudges were no longer important when Li Yuanqing was about to leave. It's you, Yuanqing. Yuanqing, don't blame me. Back then, the northern kingdom was too weak. I was afraid of offending the princess of the myriad city kingdom, so I naturally had to punish you severely. If I didn't cripple your cultivation, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to keep your life. At this moment, Li Yuanqing looked like he was dried up. His hands were like withered branches as he looked at Li Yuanqing with his turbid eyes. This was the deepest pain in his heart. It had been 20 years. Back then, because his eldest son, Crown Prince Li Yuanqing, had disobeyed his decree, He had actually issued a decree to cripple Li Yuanqing's cultivation and send him to the wilderness. He had even ordered him to never return to the palace. The princess of the myriad city kingdom is very strange. She is the saintess and her cultivation level was already unfathomable many years ago. She has secrets on her. You have to be careful. Cough, cough. I'm not able to make it anymore. There is only one thing I can't let go of in this life. The legacy of the Northern Kingdom will depend on you. The people will suffer if it were to be destroyed. Li Yuanqing kept holding his son's hand and refused to let go. He looked at Li Yuanqing expectantly. He knew that his son was cold and indifferent to kinship. He doesn't treat him as his father. At most, he still had some affection for Zhaoyang. However, he's not going to make it anymore. He was the only one in the Northern Kingdom who had the ability to protect the country. If he refused, the Northern Kingdom could be destroyed at any moment. Yuanqing, Yuanqing, I beg you, protect the Li clan's empire. I can't let down the founding ancestor. It was difficult for our ancestors to form the country. We can't let this empire be destroyed in the hands of our children and grandchildren. Although Li Yuanqing had no strength left, he still held his son's palm tightly and refused to let go. It was easy for Li Yuanqing to break free from his restraints, but his heart softened in the end and he sighed. I will take care of the Northern Kingdom for about 100 years. If the next emperor is too ridiculous in the future, I will remind him. 100 years was Li Yuanqing's limit. He was a cold person and a person who did not want to cause trouble. Wasn't it good to stay in the wilderness valley? In the blink of an eye, almost 20 years had passed. You can cripple any unworthy Li clan descendant. If you want your sister to ascend the throne and become the great empress, I only hope that the Northern Kingdom will still belong to the Li clan in the future. Otherwise, I won't be able to rest in peace. Li Yuanqing's eyes were already red and tears kept falling. He was really anxious. Death was not scary. He was already prepared for it. Moreover, he had been hanging on for so many days, waiting for Li Yuanqing. Without his promise, Li Yuanqing would not have died in peace. Li Yuanqing was a little hesitant. His father had too many requirements. Having too many ties was not beneficial to his cultivation. Li Yuanqing panicked and coughed violently when he saw that Li Yuanqing was unwilling to agree. Blood spewed out in large mouthfuls. Blood splattered everywhere. Blood covered the blankets and ground. It was a shocking sight. Big brother, father. Outside the door, Zhaoyang shouted worriedly when she heard the commotion. This shout made Li Yuanqing sigh, and his heart softened. Don't worry. I will protect the Northern Li clan for 100 years, and not let the unfilial descendants of the Li clan break the inheritance of the founding martial saint. Li Yuanqing's words made Li Yuanqing, who was already out of breath from coughing, feel completely relieved. His grip on Li Yuanqing's hand loosened. Let Zhaoyang in, cough, cough, cough. Li Yuanqing finally let go of Li Yuanqing's hand. Li Yuanqing let Zhaoyang in. Then, ministers from the court were summoned in. The people who came and went bowed to Li Yuanqing in awe. In the end, Li Yuanqing was annoyed and simply avoided everyone. When Li Yuanqing stopped breathing, he heard the bell of the palace ring. The bell rang 12 times in a row. The imperial city was filled with cries and white everywhere. It was not winter yet, but some people's houses had even hung up the white ribbons. His father was living in the hearts of the common people in the Northern Kingdom. This made Li Yuanqing, who had promised his father to protect the Northern Kingdom, firm his resolve. No matter how indifferent he was to kinship, a promise must be kept. Since he had promised, he should not change his mind so easily. So be it. There was no end to cultivation. To him, 100 years might pass easily. After all, a martial saint's lifespan was about 500 years if they didn't die by accident. If he used 100 years to protect the Northern Kingdom, he still had 400 years to use. Moreover, he would not interfere in every small matter. He would only take action when the Northern Kingdom was in danger. Moreover, he had to let the Li clan of the Northern Kingdom grow quickly so that they could face all kinds of storms on their own in the next 100 years instead of relying on him as a guardian. Even if Li Yuanqing's funeral was simple according to his wishes, it had already been 49 days since his death. Furthermore, he had allowed the people of the Northern Kingdom to pay their respects. The entire imperial city was filled with cries these days. Fortunately, less than 10 days after the late emperor's death, Princess Zhaoyang ascended the throne under the protection of the officials and became the first great empress of the Northern Kingdom. What was surprising was that Princess Zhaoyang's title after her ascension to the throne was also Zhaoyang. She even issued a decree to reward the members of the Li clan's royal family and announced that regardless of gender, the royal family would have the right to inherit the throne in the future. This made the original Li clan, who were worried that the Northern Kingdom would change hands in the future and the Li clan would decline after the great empress passed away, heaved a sigh of relief. Li Yuanqing stayed in the imperial city for 49 days. He saw Zhaoyang ascend the throne and become the great empress of the Northern Kingdom. He saw his father being buried in his bedroom, where the coffin of the second emperor of the Northern Kingdom was. Princess Zhaoyang had come to see Li Yuanqing once before she ascended the throne. She had sent him a wooden box that she had found on the patriarch of the Ba Serpent clan. It was about the secret of providing for the Ba Serpent. In the end, the Ba Serpent clan was devoured by the Ba Serpent and their entire clan was destroyed. Zhaoyang felt that it was a little troublesome to leave this in her hands, so she gave it to Li Yuanqing and let him handle it. Li Yuanqing left the imperial city and returned to the valley in the wilderness. Hu Jujia was injured and returned to her original form. She turned into a fiery red little fox. She was furry and cute. Not long after Hu Jujia was beaten back to her original form, the Qilin beast disappeared. Li Yuanqing did not care where it went. Cao felt that it was very useless after the Ba Serpent calamity, so it followed behind Li Yuanqing and started cultivating. Occasionally, Li Yuanqing would throw a few pills that he had no use for to Hu Juju, but if Hu Juju didn't like them, he would throw them to Cao. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. Princess Zhaoyang had been handling the government matter since the beginning before she ascended the throne, so she was very comfortable with these things. She loved the common people very much. She promoted the martial arts academy vigorously and won the support and prestige of the common people. It quickly stabilized the situation in the Northern Kingdom and the regime. After experiencing the Ba Serpent disaster in the Northern Kingdom, the news of the Guardian of the Northern Kingdom hunted the Ba Serpent for 10 days and 10 nights of blood rain falling from the sky was spread throughout the world. Although the Northern Kingdom had been in danger in recent years, the Ba Serpent disaster made the Northern Kingdom famous. Because the Ba Serpent was too strong. In the past 1,000 years, it has devoured countless people and harmed countless countries. It had even killed countless martial saints. However, this time, it was intercepted by the Guardian of the Northern Kingdom. Although the Northern Kingdom had only been established for a short period of time and had always been regarded as lacking in foundation, the Northern Kingdom was not to be underestimated after the Ba Serpent disaster. It was a powerful country. Li Yuanqing's battle had caused the Northern Kingdom to be very peaceful for the past 3 years. There were almost no traces of thieves. However, in the past 3 years, ever since the bloody reign of the Ba Serpent, there had been some changes in the Northern Kingdom. Every year, when winter was about to arrive, the vicious beasts in the wilderness seemed to be stirring up trouble and harassing the wilderness camp. Especially after the disappearance of the Qilin beast, this situation became more and more serious year by year. On the 3rd winter of the Ba Serpent disaster, for half a month, there was no sun in the sky. It was always gloomy. Even when Wang Shun was delivering food to Li Yuanqing, he was talking about the abnormal things that had happened over the years. In recent years, it seems that everyone's cultivation has become easier, especially in the imperial city. I heard that there are many 7th-grade martial artists in the martial arts academy now. Moreover, many commoners can cultivate. Some say that the blood rain allowed our Northern Kingdom to benefit from calamity. This was because everyone's cultivation speed seemed to have increased over the years. He had advanced too. Yes, that Ba Serpent is more than 1,000 years old. The blood in its body is a great tonic. The blood falling down as rain is indeed a blessing for the Northern Kingdom. Moreover, I feel that something bad will happen this winter. Wang Shun did not know that Li Yuanqing was the guardian of the Northern Kingdom. He had always been in the wilderness. Back then, when Li Yuanqing killed the Ba Serpent, he was too fast, and he did not have the chance to see him. Moreover, in the past 3 years, Li Yuanqing had been cultivating nonstop and had already advanced to the 5th grade Grotto Heaven realm. This speed was already quite fast. This was also related to the recovery of something in the air after the blood rain. Just as Wang Shun had said, everyone's cultivation speed had increased, but the speed of improvement was not that shocking. That's right, Your Highness. Look at how gloomy it has been for so many days. You can't see the sun or snow. Just looking at it makes you feel suffocated. Wang Shun was also sighing and chatting with Li Yuanqing. After he left, Li Yuanqing thought for a moment and wrote a letter to Zhaoyang to warn her that there would be some changes this winter. As expected, not long after Zhaoyang received Li Yuanqing's letter, something happened. Furthermore, everyone was very surprised this time. The winter was cold this year. There was no sun and no rain for many days until late evening on New Year's Eve when it began to rain. And this time, surprisingly, it was the same red rain as 3 years ago. It had rained for 3 days and 3 nights. The sky cleared on the 3rd day. The moon rose at night, but it was a red moon. The curved blood-red moon hung in the sky. Great Empress Zhaoyang, who had received Li Yuanqing's letter, stood on the city wall of the imperial city and looked at the red crescent moon in the sky. No matter how stupid she was, she should understand that the northern kingdom was about to change. Something was definitely going to happen. However, she did not know what would happen this time. The red crescent moon not only shone on the territory of the northern kingdom, but also on other places. In a place surrounded by a forest, a group of strangely dressed people were dancing against the red crescent moon. The strange dance was more like a ritual. At the front of the group was a huge stone altar. This altar was built very strangely, and the center was empty. Inside was a pool of liquid that looked like water. At this moment, the red moon in the sky shone on the liquid, turning it completely red. The red moon is high in the sky. Our ancestors have appeared. Ola, our time has finally come, a person with strange symbols on his body and countless braids on his head shouted. He heard the dancers below cheer at the moon. In the books recorded by their ancestors, there was a prophecy whereby their glory would return to them once there is a red moon in the sky, and the world would belong to them. Therefore, to them, the red moon in the sky was the most beautiful scene and the most hopeful thing. In a dark place, a red moon shone down. Red light shone through the darkness. Someone's shadow was restless and greedily breathed in the red light. Their era had finally arrived with the arrival of the red moon. Li Yuanqing also stared at the red crescent moon in the sky. He could feel that there was a layer of red fog in the wilderness. With the blood rain from a few days ago, he could feel that the vegetation in this desolate mountain valley was especially lush even though the rain was a faint red. There were originally many willow trees by the Clearwater Lake. Every year at this time, they would be bare and lifeless. However, after the blood rain, Li Yuanqing could feel that these willow trees were glowing with vitality and even starting to sprout. Winter in the wilderness was very cold, but the willow tree had mutated. It was busy sprouting in winter. The grass on the ground and the small insects that were originally lurking underground had become active. Li Yuanqing could even see the centipedes on the ground. These insects that did not belong to winter had actually appeared under the catalysis of the blood rain. And the red moon was like a fuse. The entire climate and vegetation changed. Every breath in the air made one feel comfortable and relaxed. Under such circumstances, it was even easier for martial artists to cultivate. In that case, the vicious beasts in the wilderness were probably even more powerful because those vicious beasts had gradually developed intelligence. They lived longer, and humans could not compare to them. The only thing that made humans stronger than vicious beasts was their intelligence. Once vicious beasts developed intelligence, it was not a good thing for humans. Li Yuanqing was not as overjoyed as many martial artists. Instead, he walked around when the red moon appeared. He went to take a look at the martial arts academy in the Wilderness Valley. There, the martial artists did not take a break. They were still cultivating under Wang Xian's supervision. Moreover, these martial artists' cultivation speed had increased. In the past, anyone who advanced to a 4th grade martial artist, which was an intermediate martial artist, was like reaching the heavens in a single bound for ordinary people. This was because a 4th grade intermediate martial artist could receive a salary in the Northern Kingdom or become an official or a teacher at the martial arts academy. But now as Li Yuanqing casually took a look, many of the students in the martial arts academy had already broken through to become 4th-grade martial artists. There were even 5th-grade martial artists. As for Wang Xian, the dean, he was already an advanced 8th-grade martial artist. This speed was very fast. It was probably because of the blood rain and blood moon that Wang Xian nervously reprimanded the students of the martial arts academy. He did not allow anyone to leave the school. Everyone was cultivating because he felt that every blood rain was a godsend opportunity for martial artists. They must not give up such an opportunity. The blood rain 3 years ago had allowed many martial artists to leap into the 4th grade. This time, the blood rain had allowed many martial artists to reach the 5th grade. Li Yuanqing nodded in his heart when he saw Wang Xian's expression. As expected of the person who was chosen to be his teacher, his knowledge was extraordinary. The Martial Arts Academy of the Wilderness would become the strongest academy in the Northern Kingdom in the future. When Li Yuanqing left, he heard the cries of a baby. A young lady was hugging a child and coaxing him. The young lady looked a little familiar. Looking at his former teacher's wife standing at the side, he suddenly realized that this child was probably Wang Xian's nephew. But who was the father? However, Li Yuanqing did not stay any longer. Since the Martial Arts Academy knew how rare the blood moon and blood rain were and knew to urge everyone to cultivate, he did not have to worry too much. He was going to the wilderness canyon. He remembered that there was a little boss serpent that he had saved 3 years ago. He wanted to see how the little boss serpent was. The beast tied in the wilderness was getting more and more serious. Since the Qilin beast was not around, he had to choose a beast king to restrain those vicious beasts. Otherwise, countless citizens of the Northern Kingdom would die if the beast tide attacked again. As soon as Li Yuanqing entered the wilderness, he felt that the vegetation here was even more lush. There seemed to be a spiritual energy in the air that was slowly increasing. This spiritual energy should be the most suitable thing for vicious beasts and humans to cultivate. As expected, Li Yuanqing's guess was right. As soon as he entered the wilderness, he saw many vicious beasts. Although those vicious beasts did not dare to approach him, there were so many of them that it was shocking. The rain of blood from 3 years ago had fallen for a few days and nights in the wilderness. This time, it was another 3 days and 3 nights. That rain of blood was a great tonic for these vicious beasts. It was no wonder that the quantity and quality rushed up. Li Yuanqing was more and more shocked on the way from the edge of the wilderness to the Grand Canyon. The strength of the wilderness was getting stronger and stronger. There were even many vicious beasts that were comparable to 3rd-grade Grotto Heaven Realm.